Hello, today we're going to go over some links bioenergetically to perimenopause, even spanning the menopause transition. I'm going to use some of my information with the full scan and the brain scan to share with you what perimenopause could potentially look like on reports. Welcome to CBH Energetics, where we use bioenergetic testing to activate your personal wellness and amplify your wellness business. So, if you are in this space of hormonal imbalance, you will know that the imbalance of hormones can affect any system. In fact, the loss of estrogen and progesterone is not limited to things like the urogenital system. It can go everywhere in the body. We have estrogen receptors everywhere. So let's start by pulling out the top systems that you might see showing up on a full scan when someone is struggling with the perimenopause transition into menopause. So, as expected, you would see nervous system stress and endocrine system stress because these two are so intimately connected, right? We have that signaling coming from the nervous system. You would also see digestive stress because the transition and changes hormonally can affect the digestive system in many different ways. There are changes to the gut microbiome. So when it comes to, say, toxins, you're going to see some potential toxin imbalances in the bacteria and maybe parasites and virus realm. Everybody's going to be different, but there could be a big disruption in the gut microbiome. And vice versa, if we have digestive system stress and imbalance in the gut microbiome, this is affecting the estrobolome, that part of the microbiota that helps to metabolize estrogen. And that in and of itself will have a cascade effect on the whole body. We would also see stress in the liver. So with the changes of perimenopause to menopause, and in that first year of menopause, there can be increased risk of changes in the liver, high cholesterol, blood sugar imbalances, and those can all come in liver stress and in looking at other areas of the report. But I want to point out another thing that the menopause transition process, and this is from a peer-reviewed article, does increase the susceptibility to toxins. Also, it's a cumulative effect. There is a note that premature menopause might actually come because of changes to estrogen related toxins in early life. And the environmental estrogens or xenoestrogens can also modulate systemic estrogens and induce systemic and CNS inflammation. And so when we go back to, we'll go to the full scan for a second, this can be related to things like the central and peripheral nervous system and everywhere else. I mean, inflammation can happen in all areas of the body. The urogenital system may show up, and that is where women may have bladder issues. We can see some women have incontinence happening. And this can be related to estrogen. It can be related because there's estrogen receptors, as I mentioned, everywhere, but also connective tissue, because there is connective tissue that is changed with the drop in estrogen that can affect the urogenital system and even nervous system signaling. We talked a bit about the endocrine system, but this can be full on everywhere. Again, linked to the nervous system. I mean, this particular scan has adrenals, thyroid, pituitary pineal, and even hormonal imbalances down at the bottom, where we see low ACTH, parathyroid, low T3, and low cholecystokinin. So what is happening to this person? There is a change in gut health potentially, right? And signaling, where this hormone is not being signaled. Maybe it's not being signaled because of fat digestion, because of liver. This could even be in relation to the brain, right? Because there's signaling that happens here. Pituitary stress can affect the ACTH. Yes, these things can be affected by toxins for sure, because thyroid, parathyroid, they're very susceptible to toxins and virus as well. And so as we age, our lifetime exposure and accumulation and even impact of things like EBV can affect things like the thyroid. But if we go back up to the dials again, we also have locomotor. So this person has joints showing up. The drop in estrogen and progesterone does have an effect overall on joints. Estrogen protects bone health. It also is a risk factor for osteoporosis once you've been postmenopausal. So joint pain may be showing up for this person. It's labeled as joints, but if I was coaching this person, I'm going to ask other questions about bone mineral density. If they've had that assessment, I'm going to look at minerals overall and diet, especially in perimenopause, because we want to mitigate that risk. Your bone mass is basically built by the time you're 30, and it's it's changing from there. So this is the area and the time of life that we want to get in there before that estrogen is gone and really harness this. We also have lymph and we have immune here too. There is a histamine connection that can be more increased in this transition. There are mast cells and fibrous connective tissue. There are mast cells everywhere, but these two could also be related to that transition where periods might get a little more stressful. There might be more gut disturbances. There might be more diarrhea. Like there could be more foods that only in certain parts of the cycle irritate that person. Or for whatever reason, the estrogen progesterone connection is causing that histamine release, right? And I said for whatever reason, there's many reasons for this. But also know that the lymph and the immune system are very much connected because there are immune cells that live in that lymph system. So that can be part of that transition. And when we think of minerals, digestion, we have stomach here. And so I'm going to skip past this for a second. We want to think about enzymes. And isn't it interesting that there is a lack of enzymes here and even stomach acid? But this is a big connector in this age and stage with stomach stress because you need conversion in the stomach with that B12. And so looking at the overall nutritional section is going to give you clues to what else can be happening. I mean, zinc feeds gut enterocytes. We have calcium and potassium as part of that locomotor system and mineral balance. And things like mold are going to impact hormonally the central and peripheral nervous system, also the endocrine system too. So I'm going to scoot back to these energetic sensitivities with the food. This can mean many different things. So this can mean, are these moldy foods that the person should stay away from? Has their gut microbiota changed where now grains might be an issue? Are we going to judiciously look at grains and the person? Because there is some evidence that totally low carb and no grains can impact the thyroid negatively too. Everybody's so different, right? What's up with these legumes? Again, is it gut bacteria? Is it digestion? We know that we have less stomach acid as we age. We also have more stress in that brain because of the drop in estrogen and progesterone. So the way we react to things is going to be different. It's almost like stress is magnified. When you look at a brain scan of somebody who is menopausal or perimenopausal, there are certain neurotransmitters that might come up. Things like serotonin, that happy hormone. If there's gut issues, we're going to have lower serotonin. If we're not digesting protein, which is a big deal in this age and stage, we may have low serotonin. If women are really restricting their diet, protein can fall off the wayside, A, because it makes them feel uncomfortable, B, they don't stomach it. They may be calorie counting, and protein can be denser calories. They're being very judicious in how many calories they're putting in. We may not make these neurotransmitters. Minerals will play a role in this too. And then back to the food sensitivities, you may see sensitivities that impact the brain specifically on a brain scan. But even hormones, like we have these hormones here that are very much perimenopausally related, DHA, TSH, and cortisol. More sensitivities in the thyroid show up through this transition. Cortisol is also something that can go higher. This is why women struggle with that belly fat, dieting, etc. It becomes like a whole thing with the menopause and the changes in weight in perimenopause. So these make sense in that transition that we would see these. I mean, this is called the youth hormone. And so this is also your parent hormone too. There's many protective factors. Thyroid hormones, when they get triggered, also work with the brain. So is this not triggering upstream? They work with the brain with progesterone too. And then we're going to look at stress factors like dental issues. So if you see somebody who is 50, 60, there's a good chance that they had a lot of dental issues as a child or amalgam fillings too. So there's a lot of things that can come with that. Some of it is even part of it, like they can't sleep because of the brain in this age and stage. The depressants are something they may not tolerate, where early on in life, maybe they could do wine with girlfriends and now they can barely touch alcohol. The liver and the brain are not reacting well to that. And there is a big piece emotionally. We can't forget that no matter what scan we are looking at, we can't forget that emotions play a role. So, something like the governing vessel, we can think of this as vagus nerve toning, but also in traditional Chinese medicine, this is the life force. It is innervating different areas. And I say innervating, meaning with meridians. There are different connections and emotional components to this whole transition. And so, this is a time as you're losing fertility and facing the next stage that a lot of emotions come up, and they can be physical, meaning like this anxious feeling can come with the drop of estrogen and progesterone. And it can also come with coming to terms with past life, right? Like what has happened in the past that you need to come to terms with. Why are you always anxious? This is a very tough stage for many, many women. These emotions totally make sense when you think about this transition. So never negate how emotions can even show up on a full scan when you see things like the stomach or the kidney with fear. Small intestine, large intestine are big as well. Oh, and I didn't talk about teeth and jaw drainage. So teeth and jaw drainage can come up in this transition because there's dry mouth that happens. That nervous system signaling with increased anxiety, we have decreased saliva, changes the whole microbiome. I talk a lot about this, even looking for things like amylase on scans. But there could be many connections here with the teeth and jaw drainage. And many women, unfortunately, as they move through this transition, they get put on statins, they get bisphosphonates for their bones, they may be on diabetes meds. A lot of these can zap saliva, never mind that heightened anxiety. And this changes a lot in the gut microbiome and the oral microbiome, throat and tonsils, all of it. So when we scoop back to this brain scan, these emotions are really important. And thinking about balancing support, yes, what shows up in the brain scan, but what else? If you have a client that has gone through the activator, they're going to get a good sleep hygiene checklist so that you work with them. The activator is designed to take the load off you and help you not have to go through that education piece, but help your client by asking open-ended questions about their mood, their sleep, help them strategize for what's easy for them. All the things you know as coaches. So when you start to look at the remedies on either scan, you want to pay attention to what clues are there, right? We have 5-HTP. Well, this totally makes sense if someone has sleep issues in perimenopause and even sugar cravings, right? With that blood sugar dysregulation and swing. Dianagesic is there for a lot of minerals, but also calming inflammation in the body, helping joints, and magnesium for the nervous system along with the phenylalanine. Quercetin. So quercetin is a big one in perimenopause because we have cardiovascular risks, right? There's so many changes cellularly and risk factors as we age. And if somebody's on statins, this may come up, this quercetin, because it is there for cognitive function and major cellular support too. And so, depending on when these tests were done, you're going to see different types of things that would be addressed for the balancing remedies. And you could look if you're doing a combo full and brain, it's good to be able to look at these together and really assess your client and see how these fit into their life. So I hope this was helpful. You can always reach out with any questions.